Ryan. Hi, this is Sarah Palin.
Ryan, Donald Trump Jr.
Hogs to win, see you. Hey, everybody, I want y'all to check out a fellow Marines podcast.
My name is Ted Nugent, and I got a call from my buddy Ryan F. Samuels, and he wants me to tell you that he's a working hard, playing all-American son of a who is celebrating God, family, country.
Welcome to the Ryan Samuels Show, one of the top political podcasts in the United States, where we have a healthy distrust for government and mainstream media. The Ryan Samuels Show is a raw, unfiltered look at American politics. Follow on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Here is your host, Ryan Samuels.
Hello, Patriots. Big news in the world. George Santos has been expelled from Congress. Now, I think he's the sixth person in history to be expelled from Congress. Now, this obviously it is a piece of American history. I mean, this rarely doesn't happen. There's a little bit of controversy over this, but really not that much. George Santos has been caught stealing money from people. He's been caught just lying about everything, saying his grandparents were in the Holocaust. There's been a tremendous amount of mistruths with George Santos. And he's a Republican, a historic Republican. He was the first openly gay Republican elected to Congress. And he's from New York. He flipped a historically Democratic seat to Republican, making all of Long Island Republican, represented by Republicans. Now, this hurts the Republican Party, right? So they have a very slim majority. I think it's by like 4 votes, or now it's 4 that Santos is gone, something like that. And he kind of screwed the pooch, man. He got caught stealing campaign funds, and there's people out there saying, well, he wasn't convicted. They did an investigation. He scammed fellow members of Congress. So this is, and he's not really mentally stable. Here's a video of George Santos in the halls of Congress.
The fact that we have terrorist sympathizers in this building is unacceptable. They should not be allowed in here. What is happening in Israel is abhorrent. That's what it is. And the next time he tries to accost me with a child in my hand, I want him out of here. He's an animal. I am holding a child. He is a fucking terrorist sympathizer.
Who?
You can go look at the video.
Mr. Santos, who?
What happened?
Congressman Santos, who?
The gentleman back there is a terrorist sympathizer that has no business in this building. What is happening in Israel is abhorrent. What is happening to the people of Israel should not be defended. Nobody defending Hamas has any business in this building, whether you're elected, whether you're a civilian. It is a disgrace that we allow people to parade that kind of thought in here.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, he's not wrong about that, but he, obviously he's being super dramatic about it. I mean, it should be allowed in the building. I mean, yeah, I agree to a point, but, a pro-Palestinian, I mean, you got a right to free speech, and you have a right to say what you want to say, especially in the halls of Congress. That's why there's a constitutional clause that when you're on the floor of Congress, you can't be convicted for anything that you say, because they want you to be able to speak that freely about things, that you can't be persecuted for anything you say on the floor of Congress as a representative. But I mean, he's just unhinged, freaking out. Here is a representative talking about something that George Santos did to him, a fellow Republican.
This is just another example of Republicans who can't lead, and that's really shameful. The speaker and everyone in leadership knows that this man is a crook. Mr. Santos took not only my credit card personally, he took my mother's credit card personally, and he swiped them both for an additional $5,000, marking it as an over-donation. And I have it by the FEC, and I have the document in my office. And what I can tell you is within that document, I won't disclose any other names, but he defrauded over 350 people for hundreds of thousands of dollars on undisclosed amounts.
I mean, that's Representative Max Miller, a Republican from Ohio. You know, he scammed a fellow Republican out of money and his mother. So this guy has a long history of just lying and stealing and fraud, and he's a bad guy. And, you know, it hurts the Republicans because there is a pretty good chance that another Democrat is going to get elected in the special election in his congressional district in New York that they fought so hard to take over. But, you know, when you have somebody stealing money and, you know, putting it in as a campaign contribution, $5,000 from him and $5,000 from his mother, a fellow member of Congress, not to mention he's lied. I mean, just, we're going to get to that in just a few minutes here, but he has made some whopping lies. And he got caught. You know, he said that he went to NYU Business School. Never did. I mean, it's documented on interviews, and, you know, he got caught. And yeah, politicians lie. They all lie. Like Nancy Pelosi lie. Like Joe Biden, there's really strong evidence that he's taken money from foreign countries through his son Hunter. But George Santos was just so open and obvious about it. Like he kind of made no attempt to hide it whatsoever. Like, you don't steal from a fellow member of Congress and expect that to just go okay. Here is what Jesse Waters had to say.
But this guy's a liar and a fraud and a thief. The only difference is he was too obvious about it, Janine. You got to be sleazy but classy. Oh my God. Okay? You can't steal. You have to insider trade. Okay? It's embezzlement, but why not just take kickbacks like Bernie Sanders' wife? I mean, like, you're going to lie on your resume? Okay, or you can identify as an American Indian. Yep. There are ways to go about this, Judge Janine. For instance, if you want to really money launder, you got to take $40 million from the Chinese through 17 shell companies. Yeah. That's how you do it. And remember when the mafia would get big heist? Got to lay low. Don't go buy furs. That's like the #1 rule. He's buying Hermes. Come on, Hermes. Get something off the rack. But this guy's a liar and a...
I mean, if Fox News is going against you, then you're doing something obviously wrong. And I mean, Jesse's right when he says that, you know, you have to be more like Pelosi or the other ones when it comes to stealing. You can't steal, you got to insider trade. I mean, he's right. But George Santos is just, you know, he's a freaking lunatic. He's a lunatic. And he really hurt the Republican Party because now we may lose that vote forever. Let's listen to what he had to say in his own defense here.
The form of the resolution is as follows. House Resolution 114, resolved that pursuant to Article 1, Section 5, Clause 2 of the Constitution of the United States.
This is Representative Robert Garcia, a Democrat of California, talking about expelling George Santos, George Soros. If he was funded by George Soros, then he wouldn't be in a predicament, would he?
Representative George Santos be, and he hereby is, expelled from the House of Representatives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Under Rule 9, a resolution offered from the floor by a member other than the majority leader or the minority leader as a question of the privilege of the House has immediate precedence only at a time designated by the chair within 2 legislative days after the resolution is properly noticed. Pending that designation, the form of the resolution noticed by the gentleman from California will appear in the record at this point.
The form of the resolution...
So that's what they had to say about that. Now, George Santos, I'm trying to find, this is him. This is the one I'm looking for. This is George Santos on the floor trying to defend himself here.
Madam Speaker, on the matter of expulsion, we are now going down a third attempt for a privilege resolution to expel me from the House of Representatives this week. Just introduced one earlier today, and just earlier this evening we had a second. Here's the case in point. In history, 5 members of Congress have been expelled. All 5 had suffered convictions in a court. All 5 had due process. This expulsion vote simply undermines and underscores the precedent that we've had in this chamber. It starts and puts us in a new direction, a dangerous one that sets a very dangerous precedent for the future. Are we to now assume that one is no longer innocent until proven guilty, and they are in fact guilty until proven innocent? Or are we now to simply assume that because somebody doesn't like you, they get to throw you out of your job? Or better more, does the Constitution bear no consequence, where a duly elected member of the House of Representatives is elected by the general public, but then a couple of politicians decide that they don't like that person? These are all matters and questions that can be brought up. But I'll leave it at this. The process in which the Ethics Committee engaged was incomplete, irresponsible, and littered with hyperbole and littered with biased opinions. The chairman of the committee himself admitted that it wasn't the full extensive process, and therefore he couldn't recommend from the committee a punishment or action. Therefore, cheapening the process of the Ethics Committee, cheapening the process that this country has expected from this chamber. Look, it is not a right to be a member of Congress. The media will always remind me of that every time I talk to them. But it is a privilege that you work hard for, and you get elected to Congress as a privilege to represent those who have chosen you. Madam Speaker, I think we can all agree that due process matters and that we should all be very concerned about the way that we are conducting this process. I ask that all my colleagues in the House consider and understand what this means for the future, and to set the record straight and put this in the record, I will not be resigning. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
So he's trying to make the argument basically that he wasn't really convicted of anything, so therefore he shouldn't be expelled. You know, it's a decent point. You know, all the members in history of Congress who have been expelled were convicted in a court. Now, it really depends on the situation, right? So if a member of Congress gets caught colluding with a federal, you know, as a double spy for Russia or China or another country or one of our enemies, and we don't have time to really convict them in court, we need to get them out of there and get them away from that information. I mean, in that situation, you would be able to say that, you know, you'd be able to articulate fairly well that this person needs to be removed from Congress. Now, I mean, but they did do an investigation. The Ethics Committee did an investigation, and they found some pretty concerning things. Things that we already really kind of knew, and some things that we did not know. Here's another video of Santos in the hallway with reporters.
There's been a few developments. I just want to ask you about your conversation with Speaker Johnson. Have you spoken to him? What was your conversation
I spoke to him over Thanksgiving.
Well, it seems like you guys may have spoken more recently than that, according to Mr. Hearn and Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, I did speak to him earlier today. There's no secrets in this place. It's amazing how you all know what goes on. I mean, you have cups over on my walls. No, I just had a conversation with him. He asked me how I was doing and if I had made my decision. I said yes. I mean, put up or shut up at this point. All these members are pushing this. They want me to resign because they don't want to take this tough vote that sets the precedent to their own demise in the future. because they're not immune from all the nonsense that goes on in Washington, where you all follow them around with cameras and microphones in their faces. They don't like it either. So they can keep up. They can keep doing this. But my message to them is either put up or shut up, and enough of the charade.
Did he encourage you to resign?
No, not at all. Actually, he made a point to say that he was not calling me to asking me to resign.
What do we expect to hear from you tonight and tomorrow, or excuse me, on Thursday?
Well, you got to show up for that.
Thank you.
Tonight, Congressman?
So they're asking him to resign because they know that, essentially he is going to get expelled, and it's going to be embarrassing for the Republican Party. The Democrats are going to use this against them. I mean, they already are. They have been for a while, but this guy had to go. I mean, this guy was a problem. This guy had been a problem for a while. They gave him the opportunity to resign, and he declined it. So here is the vote.
2/3 voting in the affirmative, the resolution is adopted, and a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. The clerk will notify the governor of the state of New York of the action of the House. Under Clause 5D of Rule 20, the chair announces to the House that in light of the expulsion of the gentleman from New York, Mr. Santos, the whole number of the House is now 434.
So it seems.
So that was it. He got voted out. He resigned. Vivek Ramaswamy came out and made a statement. We all know Vivek is running for president, and he had an interesting take on the situation.
This George Santos guy has some serious problems, and I'd live a good life if I never met the guy. Probably most of us would. But I think it's wrong that he was expelled without putting it to the voters or without running it through the court process. The judicial system determines the guilt. The guy's been indicted. Let that play itself out. Anybody since the Civil War who has been expelled, it's only been 2 people. Both of them were convicted in a court of law before their fellow congressmen got them out. As ugly as politicians are, and I think many of their behaviors are god-awful ugly, some of them downright criminal, we have a system for dealing with who serves in Congress. It's this thing we call elections in our country. We have them every 2 years for Congress. There's another one next year, just like there was one last year. So if it has to be outside of that normal democratic process, it better darn well be a court of law that's found somebody guilty. Now that this guy has been expelled, and he does seem like a pathological liar and everything else, if what's printed in the press is to be believed. That being said, this sets a terrible precedent. Now that they can use this for George Santos, they can use this for anybody. I mean, Bob Menendez, gold bars. You could talk about that example. Go straight down the list. This should be up to the voters and to the courts, not to a bunch of fellow congressmen to override the democratic will of the people. And that may not be a popular position right now, but I think it's important that somebody speak the truth, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard.
I mean, he brings up a good point with this situation, but, I can't help but feel that if, Rashida Tlaib was being expelled from Congress, people really wouldn't have that opinion on the right side of the aisle. I know that I wouldn't. So I think it's fair to say that, this guy got caught red-handed. He got caught like red-handed. Here's another speech from Santos outside of Congress.
You said that this is a distraction for the institution. I know you've been getting this question a lot, but if it's really truly a distraction for the institution, why not just resign?
Because if I leave, they win. If I leave, the bullies take place. This is bullying. The chair of the committee putting out a motion to expel, just introducing it and not calling it privilege.
When you call somebody a bully, you lose because you're just weak at that point.
Was designed to force me to resign. But he didn't even have the fortitude to go ahead and call the privilege. He had someone else do it, someone who's actually just recently done one on me, which is Congressman D'Esposito. So the reality of it is it's all theater. It's theater for the cameras. It's theater for the microphones. It's theater for the American people at the expense of the American people because no real work's getting done.
yeah, George, you fucked up, dude. I mean, that's it. You messed up. And really can't really help you out with that situation. But here is a YouTube clip of all of the lies that he's essentially been caught in.
Drag queen, investment banker, Republican congressman. The many lives and lies of George Santos are coming under fire as he faces a third vote to expel him from America's House of Representatives. But who is he, and why are his colleagues voting to get rid of him? George Santos is the first openly gay Republican to be elected to Congress, but everything else is a mystery. Journalists did some digging on his CV and found little to no proof of most of it. They couldn't prove he attended college or that he worked at the Wall Street banks he claimed to. He's also alleged to have lied about being Jewish, his grandmother dying in the Holocaust, and having employees die in the Pulse nightclub shooting. Instead, they found a trail of bizarre stories. His former roommate claimed Santos worked as a drag queen in Brazil and wrote bad checks to spend on shoes. He's also accused of swindling a veteran whose dog was dying. The most serious claims against Santos relate to campaign fraud. He's accused of lying to donors and spending the money on Hermes, OnlyFans and Sephora. Now he faces criminal charges, including wire fraud, money laundering and lying to Congress. These now mean the congressman may be asked to sashay away.
So it's not over for George Santos. You know, he is going to be persecuted for this after the fact, and he's facing some serious stuff here, some serious allegations. Now, the dog thing was he was running some fundraiser. He had some nonprofit organization, and some veterans' dog was dying, and they did like a GoFundMe or something to that effect with George Santos's one of his volunteer organizations. And they raised $3,000 to save this veteran's dog because the guy didn't have the money. Now, allegedly, George Santos kept the money, never gave it to the guy, and his dog died. And that's a veteran. So that is, yeah, that's kind of an issue. That's just one of many things. And I guess, yeah, his former roommate was saying that he was a drag queen in Brazil. I mean, who cares? I don't care about that. Some people might. But he said that he went to NYU. He lied. He said that his grandparents were in the Holocaust. He lied. He said that, 4 of his employees were killed in the Pulse nightclub shooting. He lied. He said that his mother was in the Twin Towers on 9/11. He lied. So that just goes to his character.
I was a Wall Street superstar. I was this. My family was this. And it was all untruth.
Well, I've been a terrible liar on those subjects.
So he admits to being a liar. After a House Ethics Committee found his entire campaign, here are some of them. Santos claimed he was Jewish and that his grandparents survived the Holocaust.
I've seen how socialism destroys people's lives because my grandparents survived the Holocaust.
He lied. The New York Times obtained a copy of Santos's resume, said he worked at Goldman Sachs, never did. Said he went to NYU and Baruch College, never did. They all have denied any record of Santos' attendance or employment. He also claimed to have had 4 employees killed in the 2016.
At the time, have people that worked for me in the club. My company at the time, we lost 4 employees that were at Pulse nightclubs.
And that his mother survived the 9/11 attack.
Santos' campaign website said that his mom was in the South Tower of the World Trade Center in her office when the horrific events of that day, September 11th, happened.
Immigration of records obtained by NBC News have shown his mother was not in the U.S. at the time of 9/11. When pressed on the lies, Santos either evaded, denied, or doubled down on his claims.
I never said my mother died on 9/11. I never said that. That was never said.
My heritage is Jewish. I've always identified as Jewish. I was raised a practicing Catholic. I've always joked with friends and circles, even with In the campaign, I'd say, guys, I'm Jewish. Remember, I was raised Catholic.
I used a poor use of words, but I did work in the industry for a number of years. I did do work with all the institutions I've mentioned prior and more.
The House Ethics Committee also found that he used campaign funds for purchasing, including travel, cosmetic treatment, and luxury goods. Santos has pleaded not guilty to 23 federal fraud charges. Now, keep in mind, this is not a Trump situation. They're not making things up to go after this guy. He literally did these things. He even used campaign funds to pay for an OnlyFans account. Now, there are some cosmetic things he's using campaign funds for, like Botox, suits. You could kind of articulate that as like, no, listen, I'm running. I need to have a great appearance. That you could probably get away with. But OnlyFans, not going to happen, bud. So he has been expelled. End of story. Not the end of the story. End of story for him as a congressman. For sure. He'll never be in the halls of Congress again. And unless there is a serious insane situation that happens. I mean, listen, I get it. I get the argument that, oh, well, listen, there's due process. Congress has their own due process, right? He was expelled by his colleagues. This wasn't a 100% Democrat vote against Santos. There was a lot of Republicans who voted to expel Santos because he's an embarrassment. He shouldn't be in the halls of Congress. He's a grifter. He's a swindler. He's a liar, and he's a thief. And, there are ways to remove members of Congress that act that way. You're supposed to act within a certain guideline, certain ethics. You're not supposed to steal from your campaign donors. And it's unfortunate for the Republican Party, who probably should have done their due diligence before running this guy for Congress to begin with. They should have vetted him before putting him on and found out he lied about going to NYU, found out he lied about his mother being at 9/11, find out that he lied about his grandparents surviving the Holocaust, or found out that he spent campaign funds on OnlyFans accounts, or lied that his employees were all killed. It seems like no matter what the situation is, some national news story, George Santos connected himself, so shame on the Republicans. Shame on them for running him and not vetting him to make sure that he wouldn't become an embarrassment. And he became an embarrassment. Here is a PBS News report on Santos.
For the first time in more than 2 decades, Congress has expelled one of its own. As congressional correspondent Lisa Desjardins explains, Representative George Santos is out of a job.
The yeas are 311, the nays are 114.
The new Speaker of the House announced the result solemnly.
The resolution is adopted.
The first expulsion of a Republican from Congress, and more than 100 Republicans voted to do it.
The clerk will notify
100 Republicans.
The governor of the state of New York.
It was a historic turn of events.
This race is, for me, a personal race.
Just last year, he was a little-known congressional candidate, running as a Trump supporter who embraced Long Island's diversity and was tough on crime.
George Santos vows to tackle crime head-on in our district.
He won by 7 points, but within weeks, a local newspaper story of his misconduct went national. Santos lied about graduating from college, about working for top New York financial firms, and even his claims of being a Jew. He downplayed what he did.
Did I embellish my resume? Yes, I did. And I'm sorry. I'm still the same guy. I'm not a fraud. I'm not a cartoon character.
Calls for removal already hovered as he took the oath of office.
George Santos needs to be held accountable for his lies,
including from fellow Republicans in New York.
He's disgraced the House of Representatives, and we do not consider him one of our Congress people.
I feel confident that I get to fight it and I have my day in court.
Santos survived 2 previous efforts to expel him as the House awaited an ethics committee report that came earlier this month.
Bill, good morning. It's pretty damning here.
Substantial evidence that Congressman George Santos broke the law.
I've read a number of House Ethics Committee reports over the years. This one is uniquely exhaustive, damning, and scathing.
In a 56-page investigative report, the committee, better known for giving warnings, was searing, writing, Representative Santos sought to fraudulently exploit every aspect of his House candidacy for his own profit, and finding that Santos bilked donors, reported fake loans, stole money from his campaign, and that funds were spent on things that appeared personal, like at a casino, on an adult entertainment website, and for Botox. That came on top of the 23 felony counts he faces, including money laundering and wire fraud. Some Republicans have increasingly demanded his expulsion.
It is in the best interest of the constituents of New York 3 and all Americans that he is expelled from the House of Representatives.
Santos pleaded not guilty in court.
I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep fighting for what I believe in. I'm going to keep fighting to represent my district.
And in Congress maintained that he is the victim of a smear campaign who should be given time to defend himself.
Mr. Speaker, efforts taken by other members in this body to act as judge, jury, and executioner are unconscionable and reckless to our Republican system of government. I stand today to continue to prove my innocence.
The idea of expelling a member before his day in court gave many pause.
Kicking out Mr. Santos is setting a very dangerous precedent. Never before has Congress expelled a member based on indictments. Indictments require nothing more than probable cause. An indictment is not a conviction.
But as evidence...
Well, I mean, he's got a point on that an indictment is not a conviction, but there were many other things. So it is a little controversial. There's people on both sides of it that feel that he should have been convicted. However, I'm on the side that he definitely should have been expelled from Congress. There is more than substantial evidence to say that he acted beyond the scope and that he abused his position and power, even though he's a Republican and it hurts the Republican Party. But, you know, the Republicans, if they're going to do this to George Santos, they also need to do this to the Democrats that are in power that are just as corrupt or even more corrupt. That needs to be moving forward. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is Ryan Samuels. Make sure you hit the like, share, and subscribe button, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ryan Samuels Show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.